Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your space for black news, views, and opinions. Starting a new month here, March 1st, I'm Seth Lemon.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Rochelle Ritchie.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, progress in Congress. The White House passes landmark legislation to make lynching a federal hate crime. But can the bill survive the Senate? Meanwhile, is it treason? The former president praises Putin, calling the Russian head of the state a genius while criticizing U.S. leaders, calling them stupid. Then, amid the international crisis, a look at what President Biden will say tonight in his very first State of the Union address.
Plus, a black billionaire slash philanthropist unveils a new program to invest millions in historically black colleges and universities and double up. Winning the lottery once is lucky, but one New Yorker streak continues, winning $10 million nearly back to back.
We have all of that and much more. This is Our Voice and Our Truth. So let's get it.
There is landmark progress happening on Capitol Hill right now. The U.S. House of Representatives passing the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, approving the bill with a vote of 422 to 3. The legislation would designate lynching as a federal hate crime. Now, the bill is sponsored by Chicago Congressman Bobby Rush, who says he drafted the law immediately after the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. 3 Republicans, Representatives Andrew Clyde of Georgia, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, and Chip Roy of Texas, voted against the bill, which now goes to the Senate, where a similar measure stalled in 2020. It's a little bit of progress. Over the past century, I think that anti-lynching laws have failed more than 200 times. So it's been a repeated, concerted effort to get what I think many Americans agree is a heinous act of violence against anyone to be a federal crime.
You know, heinous is a great word to use, because if you think back to the kind of torture that people had to go through when they were lynched, and so 99% of the people were never punished who were doing the lynching, and 4,000 people were lynched. Majority of those people were black people. And so, like you said, Seth, this is some progress, but also I'm really happy to know that this will shine light on why IDB Wells, the NAACP, this is all where they started and began their strides to fight against racial injustice back in the 1900s and the early 1900s. Excuse me. Yeah.
You know, I think this is really great news, but at the same time, it's a little frustrating that it took this long. I mean, that's the biggest question. When we talk about lynchings, we're going back to slavery days, right? And now it's 2022. So why did it take so long for this to happen? So I'm happy about the progress, but it's still frustrating to see how long this actually took. And it makes you wonder, how much longer are all these other reforms and all these other policies that we want to protect black people in this country? How much longer are we going to have to wait for that? So I'm happy but frustrated.
Yeah, Rochelle, you're absolutely right. The record's like, you can maybe go back to 1882. So we're talking 140 years, and it took them that long to get to this. And do you think about all the lynching that have happened? I'm thinking about Mississippi with over 500, Georgia and Texas, and that's just between 1882 and 1968. Those are the numbers I looked at. I couldn't go any further because I was upset. So I'm happy to see this bill pass, but it's way long overdue.
And that's the 19th century, not the 1900s. I want to correct that. As Russia continues to attack Ukraine for a 6th day, Ukraine's president is accusing Russia of terrorism for hitting civilian targets. A new video shows powerful blasts hitting the city square in Kharkiv, and a 40-mile convoy of Russian tanks, trucks, and personnel continues to move towards the capital city. And what some have feared is a move to topple Ukraine's government. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky addressed the European Parliament today by video, pleading with the members to help his country. We are seeing, again, awful videos, traumatizing videos of people trying to escape. And just to know, a 40-mile convoy, that is really long. And you went to see the aerial video of how long it really was. And so they were saying that the troops got 15 miles close, and they had to stop because they ran out of food and out of gas as well. And so my thing is, that wasn't thought beforehand. You have 40 miles here, and nobody thought that we might need more food or gas.
The logistics of it have proven to not been planned out well. But it hasn't stopped or slowed down Putin's continued forward movement toward Ukraine. I think what's been most disconcerting for me lately is the way that some of the coverage has been framed, because these are Europeans, and the emphasis on how this is unprovoked. It was, absolutely. However, we haven't seen the same kind of tenor or tone when it comes to other areas of the globe that deal with similar invasions on their land as well.
Well, I'm not really surprised that Putin didn't take care of his army. I mean, he doesn't take care of his people, so I think a lot of these people have such a loyalty to Putin that they will go out to fight a war and not have the proper resources in order to do so. And I agree with Seth. There's a little bit of white privilege that is actually really happening with this whole Ukraine and Russia thing. And some of the things that you hear being said, there's a little bit of entitlement. There was a comment made about, these are Europeans. This isn't a third world country.
Right.
These are people with blonde hair and blue eyes. I mean, so there's a little bit of narcissism and racism that is mixed into some of this coverage and the language that we're seeing being used.
I agree with that. And, in the long term, will we hurt Russia when it comes financially? They're hurting their pockets, right? But how are we going to step up and help Ukraine on the ground? That may be the question for the rest of the world have to answer eventually, because the real question is, how long can they hold off the Russian army before they come in and try to take over? We know that could happen sooner than later. We pray it doesn't, but it is a possibility. Russian invasion of Ukraine has had an impact on world politics and economics. Now political analysts say the crisis could influence the November midterm elections. While foreign policy rarely touches down on ballot races like the House and Senate, voters are looking closely at how President Biden deals with Vladimir Putin's aggression. The war has domestic implications that are hitting Americans hard with skyrocketing gas prices. Political analysts also says immigrants from Eastern Europe who live in battleground states could make a difference in the midterms.
The White House is ruling out a no-fly zone for Russian flights over Ukraine. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says implementing a no-fly zone would be a step towards U.S. troops fighting Russian soldiers. Psaki says the U.S. does not want to go to war with Russia. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky proposed the idea of a no-fly zone. When she was asked about a no-fly zone for Russian flights over the U.S., Psaki said nothing is off the table.
The United States is expelling 12 Russian diplomats from the U.S., accusing them of spying. Now, these expulsions, they come after Russia continues its unprovoked war with Ukraine, but American officials say the move has been in the works for several months. Last week, the United States expelled the second most senior diplomat at the Russian embassy, all in response to Moscow kicking the second-ranking U.S. diplomat out of Russia.
Donald Trump continues to praise Russian President Vladimir Putin, even as the invasion of Ukraine has left hundreds of people dead. The former president told the Conservative Political Action Conference last weekend that Putin was smarter than U.S. leaders. Trump says American leaders are allowing Putin to get away with, quote, this travesty and assault on humanity. Trump told the crowd Putin is playing Biden like a drum. But the former president says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is a brave man. Meanwhile, Trump hinted at making another run for the White House in 2024. Trump said Putin did it twice and, quote, we'll do it again.
Fencing around the U.S. Capitol is back up in preparation for this evening's State of the Union address by President Biden. U.S. Capitol Police officials say the decision to put the fencing back up was made out of an abundance of caution. Federal law enforcement officials are worried about the possible arrival of a convoy trucker similar to the group that blocked traffic in Canada's capital in recent weeks. Intelligence officials say the group who oppose vaccine mandates have ties to the January 6 attacks on the Capitol. D.C. police and others are worried truckers will snarl traffic around the Capitol and the city. Maryland and Virginia police are preparing for another trucker convoy later in the week. Police in those states are worried that convoy, which started in California, may block traffic on the Capitol Beltway freeway that surrounds the city.
And we're learning new details about President Biden's State of the Union speech. The White House saying Biden will address Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The president will also address issues closer to home, including inflation and the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better bill. He's also expected to address issues like child care, family and medical leave, energy costs, and health care premiums. Joe Biden will also make a pitch for his Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson. The State of the Union will air tonight. Check your local listings for showtimes.
And on Ketanji Brown Jackson's first day in court, she will be one of the justices presiding over this case that is soon going to involve parents who want to adopt Native American children. Lawyers in the matter, representing 7 families in Texas, Louisiana, and Indiana who want to adopt Native children. These cases, however, challenge the constitutionality of the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978. The law makes it hard to remove tribal-born children from their parents. It was enacted to counter decades of abusive child welfare practices against Native American families, and one of the cases in question surrounds a Texas couple who tried to adopt a child that was removed from his Navajo mother and Cherokee father back in 2019. That child was placed in foster care with white parents. The foster parents filed to adopt the child, but the Navajo Nation stepped in saying that it had found a Navajo family in New Mexico where the child was sent back. Eventually, the foster parents were able to adopt him, but they say the law is unconstitutional because it discriminates and allows placement on the basis of race. They argue family courts normally base their decision on the best interest of the child. The court will hear arguments in October. Now, even the federal government in its legal papers said that Native American children are more likely than others to be removed. So that's one concerning area of this. But it will be interesting to see. The makeup of the court isn't changing since the nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is replacing Justice Breyer. But it will be interesting to see how she interprets this, bringing her new perspective and her wealth of experience, which some of her colleagues on the bench don't have.
Who wouldn't want for a child to be with a community that looks like them, first off? Second off, the reason why this became a thing is because 80%, Seth, like you were saying, 80% of Native American children were going to families outside of their race. And so when you say that it's based on the best fit for the family, the best fit of the family ends up being about how much money you have. And it comes down to, does that family have the money to take care of this child? And so that's why a lot of people are upset, because it's not if it's the best family, because the best family could be with a family member, but you're going to someone who has the money to care for this child. But also, is this not the same thing that the black community goes through? We go through the same exact thing here.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And it's sometimes the money does win, but it's all about who's going to take care and love that child and teach him and show them the way, right? So I'm kind of torn with the story because it's important that child be with the best family possible that's fit for him in several different ways, not just maybe because they look like he or she. So we'll see how this moves forward and see what happens in 2023.
I really just wonder what the rate of adoption is, though, for Navajo families. Like, are they out here adopting at a very high rate? Because if not, these children, like black children, can sit in foster care up until they are adults. And so I think that is something to consider as well, is that if you are basing this off of race, are these children that are of color going to be sitting in foster care for a longer period of time, waiting for someone that looks like them to come forward and give them a home?
Great perspective on that. The family of a Missouri black woman who died after a date with a white man wants to know what happened to her. Police say a man who had been on a date with 29-year-old Asia Maynard called them to tell her that she was dead. Investigators told Maynard's family a medical examiner has ruled the death as natural causes. But police say this case is still under investigation. Now, Maynard's family, they do not accept that answer. They say Asia was a healthy young woman who went on a first date with the man she just met. The story is similar to the cases of 2 black women in Connecticut, Lauren Smith Fields and Brenda Lee Rawls. We've talked about both of those women here on Fox Soul's Black Report, both of whom died after first dates with men they just met. So I did a deep dive on the man that she went on the date with. His name is Isaiah James Crown, allegedly the killer here. But people are actually speaking out about this man. They're saying that he's responsible for 7 fentanyl overdoses. This man, and so people have on the Kansas City Defender, literally ex-friend, ex-roommate, ex-employee, used to work with him. They are all speaking out saying that he has killed a person via fentanyl overdose, and he is just walking free. So if he is truly responsible for this, he needs to be in jail immediately.
Well, you know what? This is breathtaking because it's so sad that this continues to happen, right? And you have to be cautious and if you're on an app, dating app, you have to have precaution to begin with. But to have all these allegations and things behind this man and not have a red flag up, like how do you get in front of this situation to not allow something like this to happen? That's the question they have to get to, right?
And I'm wondering, did she actually meet him online? Or did she meet him, just in general? Because if, the other cases, these were women that met these men online. So this is obviously just a date of 2 people of 2 different races. So I think it's, we have to be a little bit careful to not make it sound like white men are out here just killing black women that they're going on dates with, particularly because this one's a little different than actually meeting somebody online. And moving forward, an Ohio leader of a Proud Boys chapter is in trouble after he hit an African-American woman outside of a bar. 26-year-old Andrew Walls was arraigned today for assault and possessing a firearm. Police say Walls was drunk outside the bar Saturday night when he called Cameron Morgan the N-word and attacked her. Police say Walls broke Morgan's nose and gave her a concussion. The FBI is working with Akron police to determine if the attack was in fact a hate crime.
An Illinois teen can thank Snapchat for keeping him out of jail for a crime he didn't commit. Waukegan police grabbed 15-year-old Martell Williams out of a classroom and worked to get a confession out of him. Police say he shot a dollar store clerk during a robbery last month. After hours of trying to get Williams to confess, cops reportedly offered to buy him food from McDonald's if he confessed. They said they would let him go home. After confession, Williams confessed, but he spent 2 nights in a jail cell instead of going home. When a young man's mother found out, she with friends helped him out, were able to piece together his whereabouts. They used Snapchat to prove he could not have committed this crime. A Snapchat screenshot proved 2 cops that at the time of the shooting, Williams was at a high school basketball game. The family has an attorney and is demanding an apology from the police department. The way they handled this situation from the beginning is all wrong. Again, we have a young black man. They have in there forcing him to confess, so to speak, right? Even offer him food. Like, how degrading is that? Where's the lawyer? Where's the parents? So many questions to this situation where it's out of control. And how do we just ask for an apology? There should be more to this, because imagine if that Snapchat and that information wasn't available, this guy could probably still be in jail.
Yeah, this is one of those features in Snapchat that I remember when it broke headlines a few years ago, I turned off. And now I'm wondering, could this be one of those things that's really helpful in other cases? Because a lot of people don't even realize that Snapchat is monitoring you constantly. I mean, if you open it up and you've got friends in there, you can literally see on the map where all of your friends are going. Helpful in this case, but a question of concern for, apps that are tracking you and where that information lives.
We saw how fatal it was for George Floyd, how a small incident, how it could lead an end to be fatal with a police run-in. And so, again, Seth and Romeo and Rochelle, I'm really happy that it was able to help here. But this is a situation that we need to take serious here, because if they really thought that he was the person that did this, we don't know what the police could have done to this young boy, because we saw what happened to George Floyd with a small convenience store situation run-in.
Well, we know what could have happened. This could have been a whole nother Central Park 5 situation, because that's exactly what happened to those young teenage boys who were basically forced into confessing to a crime that they did not commit. And so this is another incident just very, very similar to that. Luckily, obviously, technology was able to prevent him from going to jail for something he did not do. But this also goes to, what are the police doing to make sure that they're following the proper protocols and policies when they take teens into custody? Because that, to me, is the bigger issue than whether or not what Snapchat has available. This police department needs to be held responsible for exactly what they did to this young man.
And if I can add one more piece in here too, last year Illinois actually became the first state in the U.S. to ban police from lying or using deceptive tactics while interrogating minors. So that also, congratulations to Illinois on passing that.
All right, moving along. Orange County, a sheriff's deputy there will not face criminal charges for killing a homeless black man that he stopped for jaywalking back in 2020. This all started when deputies assigned to work with San Clemente's homeless population spotted Kurt Reinhold crossing the street. Cops confronted him. That led to a struggle, and that's when Deputy Jonathan Israel says he thought Reinhold was reaching for his partner's gun. According to a department review, Israel told investigators he thought Reinhold was a threat to other deputies and to people nearby. The shooting sparked protests and a wrongful death lawsuit by Reinhold's family against the county.
A North Carolina college student working on a school project was able to use his research to help free a childhood friend from prison. 22-year-old Brandon Harris says he saw news reports about his friend Surah Sona being sentenced to prison for crimes he committed as a teenager. He wanted to tell Sona's story to prison officials to show that his upbringing contributed to the bad decisions he made as a teen. Harris was able to interview victims as well as Sona's family members and his friend for the project. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan Hogan allowed Harris to interview Sona. Now, Sona had been tried at 17 as an adult for burglary. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, but with the help of Harris's stories about Sura's life, a Maryland judge last month freed the young man 12 years early. Sura, who was thankful for his friend's help, will apply for college next year, and Harris says he will also go to law school.